Okay, let's unpack this. Have you ever wondered why, despite North America boasting millions of youth soccer players and, unparalleled resources, we consistently struggle to develop world-class talent at the rate we maybe should?
Hmm.
It's like having all the ingredients for a Michelin star meal, but the final dish just isn't quite there.
It's fascinating, isn't it, the sheer scale?
Mm-hmm.
Our sources highlight over 1 million registered youth players just in Canada, millions more in the U.S., and this is all supported by vast financial resources, world-class infrastructure. Yet the output, that consistent stream of game-changing talent, remains frustratingly elusive. This deep dive will illuminate what one report calls the North American paradox in youth soccer development. It's pretty deep-rooted.
Yeah, and it's not just a casual observation. We've got former players like Tim Howard who've bluntly stated the system doesn't operate in a way that allows for young soccer players to develop, flat out. So our mission today is to dive deep into these four interconnected pillars of this, systemic failure. We'll explore what works in other successful nations and outline a blueprint for change for you, the listener, to understand what's truly happening and, what can actually be done.
Let's get into it.
Okay, first pillar. Here's where it gets really interesting. Our sources pin the primary problem on the pay-to-play model. They describe it as a commercial enterprise, basically.
Wait, an industrial complex is another term used,
Right.
one that actively undermines long-term player development.
Right.
And this raises a really important question. Why is an inherently inexpensive game
Right.
made so prohibitively costly here?
Mm.
I mean, unlike most of the world where youth soccer is community-supported or club-funded, in North America, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. It's huge. Former U.S. international Alex Morgan, she called this commercialization detrimental to the sport.
Yeah.
Pretty strong words.
Definitely. And for you, the parent, or, just someone watching this, the cost is, it's staggering. Annual expenses for just one competitive player can easily run into the thousands, routinely exceeding $10,000, and even reaching $13,000 to $20,000 at the elite level, according to some reports.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And that includes club registration fees, $2,000, $5,000 right there. Then extensive travel, tournaments, another $500 to $3,000 plus, supplemental training, expensive uniform kits. It all adds up fast.
It really does. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, even FIFA president Gianni Infantino, he expressed shock. He said, one of the things which shocked me here in America is that children have to pay in order to play. We have to stop this.
Wow.
Compare that to Europe. Annual fees can be nominal, maybe €120 in Italy.
A year.
Yeah, or like 70 Australian dollars monthly in Croatia. It's just a different world. And this vast disparity, it creates what the sources call a powerful socioeconomic and racial filter. Soccer becomes a sport of privilege.
Yeah.
It systematically excludes talented players from lower-income households, disproportionately affecting Black and Hispanic communities.
Yeah.
And there are logistical hurdles, too, like, club locations might be inaccessible for many urban families.
So what does this all mean? Basically, this financial barrier means the system isn't truly scouting the whole population for the best talent. It's selecting from an already pre-filtered, often affluent demographic. This foundational flaw, as one report puts it, it creates these perverse incentives driving the other failures.
Exactly, which leads us right into the next big issue.
Which is?
The culture it creates.
Right. This commercialized pay-to-play model directly fosters let's call it a toxic developmental culture. When clubs need to sell success to justify those crazy fees, the focus inevitably shifts. It goes from nurturing players to this short-term obsession with just winning games.
Yeah, the tyranny of the league table, as they say. Coaches are judged by their team's win-loss record, clubs by their rankings. And parents, look, they've made a significant financial investment. So understandably, they become consumers, demanding a tangible return.
Yeah, you can see why.
And they often measure that return by their kid's spot on a top team and how well that team does. Our sources call this a recipe for mediocrity at the youth level. It can even override, well-designed national development frameworks.
So it basically short-circuits the good intentions.
Pretty much. Even if there's a plan on paper, this pressure on the ground just takes over.
And what's fascinating here is how this intensely results-driven environment just suffocates player creativity. When every mistake is magnified, potentially punished, risk-taking goes out the window.
Right. Players learn to make the safe play. Don't try the daring dribble. Don't attempt that difficult pass. Even MLS academies get criticized for this, for an overemphasis on structured, low-risk play.
Leading to
Technically limited sports robots, as one source put it. Players who lack that individual flair, that smark.
Wow, sports robots, that's harsh.
It is, but it reflects a real concern. And the commercial pressure also leads to this more is better fallacy. Clubs offer year-round programs, multiple overlapping leagues, grueling tournament schedules.
Always more.
Always more. And it flies in the face of best practices, often inverting the recommended 3-to-1 practice-to-game ratio. Some teams play over 100 games a year.
100 games at youth level.
Yeah, with way too little actual training. Yeah. And the consequences for you, the player, they're severe. Early specialization, chronic fatigue, higher injury risk.
Burnout.
Massive burnout at staggering rates, actually.
Yeah.
Many talented players just quit by age 13 or 14. They're just done.
That's heartbreaking. And critically, it's led to the near-total replacement of unstructured, free play with organized, expensive programming.
Yeah.
Those days of neighborhood pickup games, where kids just played, learned creativity, made decisions fast.
It's mostly gone. Yeah, that informal environment, that's where soccer genius is often forged. Think South America, but here, often blocked by locked fields, or you need expensive rental permits.
So it's literally inaccessible.
In many cases, yes.
Huh.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, successful international models build from a broad base. Fun, skill acquisition, free play first. Intense pressure comes much later. The North American system, driven by commerce, it prematurely imposes this high-pressure, professionalized structure on the entire base of the pyramid.
Crushing the foundation.
Basically, yeah,
Yeah.
before it can even be properly built.
Okay, let's unpack this next critical pillar. How we actually identify talent in this win-now environment. Our sources indicate a pretty damaging bias towards players who can deliver immediate results, not necessarily long-term potential.
This raises a really important question about fairness in selection, doesn't it? The most reliable predictor of immediate youth success is often just physical maturity, not long-term potential.
Right. Being bigger, faster, earlier.
Exactly. And this shows up as the relative age effect, or RAE. It's a well-documented bias favoring kids born early in the selection year, say January to March. These players can be almost a full year older chronologically than kids born later in the year.
Which makes a huge difference at that age.
Absolutely. Substantial differences in height, strength, speed, even cognitive development sometimes.
And here's where it gets really interesting. This physical advantage leads to what's termed the Trojan horse player.
The Trojan horse. Explain that.
It's an athlete who can just dominate games at, say, age 14 through sheer athleticism, gets the wins, looks great short term. But the problem is this early physical dominance often masks significant technical and tactical weaknesses.
I see.
So once they reach higher levels where everyone is big, fast, and strong, that advantage disappears.
Right, and their lack of fundamental technique gets exposed.
Exactly. They were picked for short-term gain, but it actually undermined their own long-term development.
So what does this all mean for you, the aspiring player or the parent watching? Well, the most tragic consequence is the systematic exclusion of smaller, maybe more technical players, the late bloomers physically.
The ones who might actually have higher ceiling.
Precisely. These are often the players with the highest long-term potential, the future creative midfielders, the tricky wingers. But they get overlooked or cut from elite teams because they just can't physically compete at age 12 or 13.
So the system filters for current physical performance.
Not for future soccer potential. It weeds out the very type of player North America desperately needs more of.
Is there anything being done about this? Any solutions mentioned?
Yeah, one potential solution our sources suggest is biobanding.
Biobanding.
Yeah, grouping players by their biological age or maturation status rather than just their chronological birth year.
Ah, okay. To level the playing field physically.
Exactly. So skill and decision-making can stand out more.
Makes sense. Okay, so beyond the economic and cultural flaws, our sources revealed the system is also handicapped by, well, a fragmented and incoherent structure. Imagine trying to navigate an alphabet soup of competing leagues, organizations. No clear unified pathway.
It's chaotic. And what's fascinating here is the crisis in grassroots coaching, especially ages 4 to 9. That's where the fundamental skills, the love for the game are established.
Crucial years.
Absolutely critical. But our system heavily relies on volunteer parent coaches. They're well-intentioned, usually,
Of course.
but often lack proper training. This leads to poor instruction, sometimes favoritism, minimal individual feedback. and often a constant reset each season with a new coach who has different ideas.
Not building consistently.
Exactly. Compare that to leading soccer nations, where coaching education is rigorous, professionalized, mandatory at all levels. It's night and day.
And then there's that alphabet soup of leagues you mentioned. U.S. youth soccer, U.S. club soccer, ECNL, MLS Next T, others too. For you, the listener, this means a lack of cohesive national strategy, wildly varying standards for coaching, for development, and clubs often prioritize their commercial interests over collaborating on a national level.
Right. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, both U.S. soccer and Canada soccer have created official, evidence-based national frameworks, like Canada's long-term player development, LTPD model. These line with global best practices. They advocate de-emphasizing winning early on, focusing on skill.
So the plans exist on paper.
They do. But the critical failure lies in the massive gap between these official policies and their actual implementation on the ground.
Oh.
Those powerful commercial and cultural forces we talked about, the pay-to-play system, they routinely lead coaches and administrators to just ignore the guidelines. It creates what one source called a hollow state model. Federations lack the real authority, or maybe the will, to enforce their own rules across this sprawling, commercialized market.
It seems like a fundamental governance issue then.
Absolutely. A lack of teeth, essentially.
Okay, but you mentioned MLS and XT. Some people might be thinking, what about those elite programs? Aren't they the solution?
Yeah, our sources delved into this, and
Yeah.
it's complex. It both helps and kind of replicates some of the same flaws.
Oh, so.
Well, the most significant positive, and it's a big one, is the existence of fully funded professional academies attached to MLS clubs. For the few hundred players selected into those.
The very top tier.
Right, the very top. For them, the pay-to-play barrier is gone. Top coaching, facilities, a clear, cost-free pathway towards pro soccer. That starts to look like the European standard.
Okay, that sounds good. But
Well, here's where it gets really interesting. This free pathway applies to only a tiny fraction of players. Like, minuscule. The vast majority of the over 16,000 players in MLS Next T. They participate in non-affiliated elite clubs.
okay.
And for those families, the cost can be even higher than other leagues. Often $10,000, $20,000 a year once you factor in all the national travel for showcases.
Wow. So who pays for the free spots?
Well, effectively, these non-academy teams and their families are subsidizing the elite, fully funded tier. That's the argument in the sources.
So it creates a kind of two-tiered system within the elite league itself.
Exactly, a de facto two-tiered system. And for you, the family making this massive gamble in the paying tier, there are other issues. Restrictive rules, like often being prohibited from playing high school soccer.
Which hurts college visibility for many.
Precisely. A huge factor for American families. And even within the fully funded academies, many of the same cultural flaws can persist. Overemphasis on structure, maybe stifling creativity, mismanagement of positions for team needs, not player development.
And lack of honest feedback.
Yeah, vague stuff like your kid is doing well doesn't give a clear roadmap for improvement. Parents are left guessing.
So what does this all mean? The report argues that the MLS Next T model for most of its participants actually reinforces the socioeconomic divides it claims to solve, mirroring that exclusionary logic of the broader economy. A tiny, heavily subsidized 1% supported by a large, fee-paying class.
That's a pretty stark assessment from the sources.
It is. So to really understand these deficiencies, our sources make a brilliant comparison. They contrast our system with nations that consistently succeed. And these systems have fundamentally different philosophies.
Right. What's fascinating here is the core distinction our sources make. Successful nations treat youth development as a collective long-term asset.
An asset.
Yeah. Whereas the U.S. and Canada tend to treat it as a private, short-term consumer good.
Consumer good versus asset. That's telling.
That shapes everything.
Okay, let's unpack Europe first. Germany, Spain, the Netherlands.
Yeah, the powerhouses.
Yeah.
Their systems typically have systemic cohesion, a clear, unified national philosophy. Funding is professionalized. Academies are core investments, not profit centers. So participation is free or extremely low cost.
Down coaching.
Rigorous, respected profession. Mandatory, widely accessible education. And development is holistic, focusing on the whole person, not just the player.
Okay, so structure, low cost, quality coaching. What about South America? Uruguay, Argentina.
That's a bit different. Less about centralized structure, more about deep, organic cultural immersion. Soccer is just a way of life.
Right.
The foundation is El Potrero street soccer.
Yeah.
Unstructured play, tight spaces.
Forging skill and creativity.
Exactly. Exceptional technical skill, creativity, rapid decision-making. And then you have accessible community clubs like Uruguay's baby football, free or very low cost. They're social hubs, casting the widest possible net for talent. Scouts identify players later, maybe around 13 or 14.
So what stands out to you here, the core difference?
It's about purpose, really. In Europe and South America, a young player is developed as a long-term asset for the club's sporting future, maybe their financial future, through transfers. In North America, too often, the player is a customer, providing annual revenue for a business.
That difference in business model, it explains the divergent outcomes.
It really does, according to these analyses.
Okay, but the good news is our sources don't just identify problems. They offer a clear blueprint for change. It requires coordinated action, though.
Yes, from all stakeholders. And this raises an important question. How do we achieve such a fundamental shift? National federations, U.S. soccer, Canada soccer, they need to transition from passive roles to active, assertive governance.
Take back control.
Reclaim control, exactly. Enforce standards like the long-term player development models, and crucially, subsidize the grassroots. Imagine investing a significant chunk of revenue, maybe from the 2026 World Cup, to drastically reduce or eliminate participation costs at the foundational level, say U6 to U12. Reopen the game to all socioeconomic classes.
That would be huge. What else for the federations?
Revolutionize coaching education. Make introductory licenses free, accessible, mandatory for all youth coaches.
Get rid of the untrained volunteer issue.
Help mitigate it, yeah. And mandate development-focused competition. A nationwide ban on publishing league standings and holding championship events until at least U14. Enforce small-sided games, sensible practice-to-game ratios.
And for the clubs themselves.
Adopt a development-first philosophy. Foster localism and the excessive travel. And embrace transparency with parents about the tiny odds of a kid actually making it pro.
Manage the expectation.
Critically important. And then there are roles for coaches and parents.
Right. What about them?
Coaches need to see themselves as educators first. Prioritize fundamental technique, foster creativity, instill a love for the game. Value individual growth over team results. Always. They also need to manage the sideline environment, educate parents.
And finally, for you, the parent, our sources emphasize your immense power.
Shift your definition of success away from team wins towards your child's observable improvement, their effort, their resilience, and most critically, their continued enjoyment of the sport. Choose development over prestige.
And critically, protect the joy of play. Encourage, facilitate unstructured free play. Let kids experiment, make mistakes. After a match, our sources suggest the most powerful, supportive words a parent can say aren't some tactical breakdown, but just...
Love watching you play.
Simple as that.
Sometimes the simplest things are the most profound.
Wow. Okay, what a deep dive into this North American youth soccer landscape. We've really unpacked a lot. From the staggering financial burdens of pay-to-play to the invisible bias of the relative age effect, the cultural shifts, stifling creativity, driving burnout. It all connects.
It really does. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it's clear the current system, driven so often by commercial incentives, prioritizes short-term wins and revenue over the long-term holistic development of players. The contrast with global leaders, it just starkly highlights where our priorities have gone astray. And the urgent need for a fundamental shift in our approach.
So for you, whether you're a player, a parent, a coach, or just a fan, what this all means is there's a clear path forward. A blueprint for change exists, but it requires a fundamental shift in mindset and action from everyone involved.
Absolutely.
It's about remembering why kids fall in love with the beautiful game in the first place, right? And making sure that joy isn't crushed by a flawed system. As you reflect on this, maybe consider this thought. If we truly embraced free play and community-led, subsidized development at the grassroots, how many future world-class talents might we be missing right now simply because the gates to the game are locked behind a paywall?
Something to think about.